Welcome to the Count Stackula YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching another one of my videos. Today, we're going to take a look at some of the Swan coins from the Perth Mint. And this series began in 2017. This was the first release. And I think it's probably, arguably, one of the better designs in the series. What I like about the Swan series as opposed to the Kookaburra or the Koala or some of the other Australian animal series that have been going on for decades is that, well, this one started in 2017, as you can see. So for new collectors, jumping on to a new series that started only 5 years ago is a lot easier than jumping onto a series that started 30 years ago, in that of the Kookaburra, for example. So it's really a good jump on opportunity, and that's what I like about the Swan series of coins. Not to mention that the animal itself is very beautiful naturally, hence the reason why the Australian Perth Mint chose the swan as their pretty much identifying animal throughout all of their logos. And obviously the kangaroo is a huge seller for them, but the swan is on their logo for all their like kilos and their bullion releases and things like that. You'll see the swan as the Perth Mint. Sorry, I don't have anything to show that. But let's take a look at the 2018. And this is, another series that changes every year, which is excellent. And so I think being that it is a good jump on type of series for newer collectors, it's done really well, especially since it has a lower mintage relative to those other animal series out of the Perth Mint. Like the Kookaburra has a maximum mintage of 500,000 coins, and that's huge, where I believe the Swan is something closer to 50,000. So while it's still huge, it's like only a fraction of how many Kookaburras they produce every year. So that's really kind of cool. And now they did come out with proofs for these Swan coins. However, I only picked up the first 3 in this series for the proofs. Let's take a look at those right now. They came in these neat little boxes, and there you go. That's the iconic, I think, Perth Mint logo that you'll find on many of their bullion bars. And let's take a look at the cert. They have a mintage of 2500, and I got number 1861. So the reason why I bought these was because I got a good deal. I typically don't go after proof coins much these days. However, this was just a design that I felt was kind of a must-have. And what's nice about them is that they don't milk up very often, like some of the other mints that you'll find. So, you always risk that when you get into proof coin purchases. And so you got to be kind of selective with your choices there in terms of, they do definitely go for more than the BU. So do you really want to be spending a lot more for something that might milk up and essentially be worth the same as the BU version of that coin? So one other thing is that, they come out with the gold version, and the gold has an even lower mintage of 5,000 per release. annually. So this was the first in the series, and as we saw from the other coins, it's not necessarily one that I would want to get in gold every single year, just because I think that's a little unnecessary. There's a slight premium over your average 1 ounce coin when you get these, just because of their quote unquote low mintage. And so having, you know, sure, if finances would allow it, maybe I'd get these every year, but being that this was kind of more of a good opportunity when I picked it up in 2019, I believe, when they were just starting to kind of fade off the market or become a little bit harder to find, and spot price was still quite low. It made a lot of sense to pick that up at that time. But I bought it off of ANACS, and they sent me a coin with a huge gouge in it. It was on sale, right? But it had this like huge scratch, like right in the field above the wing. I was so upset, so I called ANACS and I returned it, and they had no problem with that. They sent me another one. They had another in stock, and luckily it was gouge free. So I'm very happy about that, you know, and I do like customer service about ANACS. If you do have any issues and you want to return your item, it's not a problem. They'll do it. They'll do it as long as it's within a certain date of your, I think 30 days you have before you can no longer return an item. Continuing on with this series, they, you know, brought the little baby swans in, and a nice little depth of field image with some ripples on the pond there. Definitely bringing together some nice finishes in the design, making it, you know, a noteworthy series, worthy of collecting and potentially stacking, because while they do typically come out more expensive than your average Perth Mint release, they tend to also go up in the secondary market and, you know, make good flipping opportunities. So let's take a look at the next proof coin. Also same number of mintage, and yeah, beautiful design. And like I said, the only reason why I got these proof coins was because I got a deal on them. You know, if you can get a good deal on a proof coin and it doesn't have any condition problems, yeah, sure, why not? Maybe you'll make money off it when you sell it, if you choose to sell it. For me, this is kind of a collector piece that I'm just happy to own. I think it's cool, and, you know, I'll just hang on to it. Let's put that over here. So as we move on, let's talk a little bit about the market, because this is the 2020, and in 2020, you know, all hell broke loose, pretty much SHTF scenario, and I think appropriately they made this a black swan, and we know that because they released a colorized version of it in black. And yeah, definitely appropriate for the year. And the reason why I bring that up is because, you know, if we're talking about the market for silver specifically, I think the question that you want to ask right now is, have we peaked? Is the peak already in? And I think certainly when it comes to the crisis of the pandemic, yes, I think we've absolutely peaked from that episode in 2020, and we've definitely been coming down ever since. So the peak being at around $29 and change for silver. That was the opportunity that people were waiting for. Of course, many people who watch the markets were waiting for another atmospheric rise in the price of silver back to the previous all-time highs of $50 per ounce. And, I think it surprised a lot of people when it didn't happen. And that's why a lot of people are still questioning, is this it? Is that the peak? Or is there more to come that we don't know about? But I think it's pretty obvious at this point, at end of year 2022, that whatever we saw with the crisis of 2020, that peak that occurred is now concluded. And anything that comes next will probably not be a result of the pandemic, but rather perhaps because of inflation or our response to the pandemic. So I think that very likely we could see another rise in the price of silver. However, right now it's not looking too likely. I typically don't put a lot of faith into technical analysis. However, I think it is definitely a good strategy. And if you can analyze the markets through TA, then you're going to have an advantage for sure. And you're going to have a few tricks up your sleeve. However, it's not infallible. That the issue with TA is that anything can be invalidated immediately once there's a change in the political climate, or if there's a war, or if some other catalyst occurs in the system that will basically invalidate any kind of technical analysis that you may have already been looking at. As we move on to the 2021 Swan, let's consider that things typically happen. The movement in the spot price is more or less, while it does tend to move slow, it doesn't move so slow that things that happened 2 years ago are now going to affect what happens today and then 1 or 2 years later. Meaning that I think what we saw early on in March of 2020, when the spot price dropped to below $12 and then over the course of the year rose up to $29, that was the initial response and the peak in the spot price that we saw. Now, inflation being an issue with a more longer term type of situation where there may be another peak, will it surpass the peak of 2020? I find that unlikely, but it is possible. It is certainly possible, but I don't think it's probable because of pretty much the Fed's response. Now, with the Fed's response and how they kind of acted quickly to curb inflation with the Fed rate hikes, raising basically the value of the dollar. And typically silver and the dollar, they are correlated in that they have an inverse correlation, so that if one goes up, the other goes down. So if the dollar's going up, silver spot price will go down, having that inverse correlation. And that's what we've seen. More recently, people are getting excited because spot moved from a low of 18 and change to 24 and a half or so. And that gets a lot of people excited because it's pretty rapid movement. But I see that more as a selling opportunity for wholesaler silver stackers and dealers, because it's not a whole lot to be able to capitalize on as a individual investor. However, when you're dealing in large volume, that makes a big difference. But with what is it really doing? Is it trying to go back to the peak? Well, I think we would call that a retest. It's retesting the previous highs, and as we've seen, it failed to break through. So being a fail, it's likely that we're going to see lower lows, because if you look at the trend over the last 6 months, we've been basically looking at lower highs and lower lows. And when you see that type of activity in technical analysis, you can assume that the trend is downward. With the trend being downward, irregardless of its correlation with any other commodity or dollar or whatever, the trend is your friend until the end, and you can pretty much bank on it going lower over the near term, because unless there's some other catalyst to bring it out of that pattern that it's in. So that's my take on where we sit with the market today at the end of 2022, mid-December. And I really don't know what to anticipate for 2023, as it's all dependent on the Fed's actions for next year, on where spot price will go. Does it really matter? Not typically, not too much to me, because when spot price is up, I typically don't buy in quantity. I'll maybe pick up one or two of a coin that I am collecting, typically just one, actually, one for the collection. But if spot price is really kind of going down, like when it was closer to the 18 mark recently, that's when I started loading up on a few more of the coins in the series that I liked, or the best of what was available. And you definitely want to take advantage of those market swings when you see them, because in my opinion, the market does move slow enough to basically take those opportunities and use them to your advantage. So in times like this, with spot price close to $23, $24, I'm taking a break, holding that dry powder. I'm waiting for better series to come out and better coins to make their way to the market. Maybe I'll pick up one of something that I know I don't want to miss out on, and maybe I'll pay a little bit more for that, and I'm okay with that, because it's just part of the hobby, part of the collecting strategy that I have. And that's one way that I do try to time the market. But it works for me. It may not work for you. It's kind of something I just picked up with time in the market, and that definitely gives more of a perspective in how I like to acquire my metals. So I could go on more in depth, and we will definitely discuss other topics related to silver coins and gold coins in going forward. But before we go, I want to just show off some of these interesting little coin boxes that I've made. Now, I don't actually have any of these available for sale, but you know, there's some coins that obviously don't fit in your average capsule, tube, or whatever. Like these Una and the Lion 1 ounce bars. I forgot to show in my last video. But, you know, I don't know if they have a tube for these that would fit with capsules. I don't think they make one. That's actually a good idea. I should probably make a tube of 20 or so for these. I actually think I've already done that. I just haven't marketed it, but I just wanted to show off. I do also make custom boxes for some smaller quantities of things that I have, or that don't necessarily fit in the normal type of case. And this has been, you know, pretty good for keeping things safe and organized. They don't take up a lot of space, and it's, you know, it's a convenient little box that I keep my Uno Lion coins, rounds, bars. Similarly, I have one for the Beskar bars that came out, and one more, which is kind of like for this one-off. It's got a screw cap, which is kind of a thing, you know, early on when I was stacking more like junk silver and things, I wanted to dive into the eBay market and see what these rolls of $50 were all about. Like, is it legit? I was definitely curious. They certainly look legit. However, I do know now that these are not legit and totally stacked by the sellers, often with rolling machines. And, you know, typically they'll put some nice decently brilliant uncirculated coins on the ends, and then fill the inside with cleaned coins and all types of junk, in hopes that you'll think that, you know, it's a fresh roll from the bank. It might be, it might not be. I chose not to open it because I believe that in this form it's worth more than if I were to open it. So that's how I chose to save that in this little screw cap. So I think that's kind of cool. And yeah, so I do custom work. If you're interested, you can hit me up in the comments and let me know what your project is, and maybe we can work something out. If it's cool, maybe I can make it available for other buyers as well, and people who might need the same product. So that's going to do it for today, y'all. I really appreciate you watching my video. I'd like to ask you to please subscribe, hit the like button if you enjoyed it, hit the dislike button if you didn't, and leave a comment down below. I'd like to hear your thoughts on the market, on these Swan coins, and if you're collecting them, are they worth it? And anything else that might be on your mind. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you on the next one. Count Stackula, over and out.